Hi everyone, thank you for joining us for Supply Chain and E-Commerce Summit. This is Caitlin with PaceJet. We're about to start the Rocking ROI at a Beer shipping session with Chicago Music Exchange. To kick things off, we're going to show a short intro video into PaceJet, and then we'll jump into the presentation.
Meet Joe. He's the shipping manager at Chairs Inc., where they ship world-class chairs to customers and stores all around the country. Joe has tools to help him pick chairs from the warehouse. The hard part? Packing them up and shipping them out. There are so many carriers to choose from and so little time. And with all the different rates and shipping times getting in the way, how can he decide? Say hello to PaceJet, your tool to get the right shipments to the right places more quickly, accurately, and cost-effectively than ever before. With the ability to integrate with your ERP, PaceJet shipping software manages all your shipping in real time. With its cloud-based platform, he can find the best rate and fastest delivery anytime from anywhere. And once those shipments are sent out, Joe can track them in real time to make sure they arrive exactly when and where they need to be, improving customer satisfaction and saving Joe's company time, stress, and cash along the way. Happier customers, cost-effective solutions, and simpler processes. That's the science of shipping. Visit pacejet.com to learn more.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. How are we all doing? I see that, Brian, are you on board with us?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. That's good. Well, good afternoon to everybody. Good morning to our friends out on the West Coast. We're getting ready for our next session here. I'm very excited about it. My name is Alan Minton. I am going to be the host of the session, but the star of the show is going to be Brian Robertson from the Chicago Music Exchange, and he's got an outstanding story to tell you. I've been reminded by Caitlin to let everyone know that we have a giveaway, a $150 gift card from the Chicago Music Exchange. So you need to be around to win that, but we'll do that at the end of our sessions here. And if you all have not had an opportunity to peruse their website, or even better yet, go to the store in Chicago. It is a very, very cool place, and probably one of the few places where I could say the warehouse is just as cool. So I'm excited to get going with this. Caitlin has cautioned me. Not that many people want to hear about me. They want to hear about Brian. So I'm going to go ahead and get the process going. I started a little bit, did our introductions of PaceJet. You saw our fine video done earlier. We've talked a bit about Chicago Music Exchange. What's going to happen is I'll tell you a little bit more about us. Then we'll get to the meat. Brian's going to tell you, here's some of the challenges that they were facing. And then, after working with PaceJet and other great companies like RF Smart and stuff, how did they take advantage of the integration with NetSuite and stuff to solve some problems, and better yet, share some real-life metrics with you on how things change. So, other little housekeeping. Go ahead and submit questions if you're in the middle of this. Brian and I mean, we talk, Brian, we want this to be as interactive as possible. You're fine with taking questions, aren't you?
Absolutely. Prefer it.
All right, so good. Let's do that in the middle. If you've got some of those, send those on out. I will be paying attention in the chat section here for that. Caitlin, I know you're listening. If I'm missing any of those, go ahead and interrupt either one of us. I don't think you'll throw us off and we can get going. But let's move to the meat of it. For those of you who aren't familiar with PaceJet, we're a division of a company called 3G TMS, which is a Tier 1 transportation management system. Think of us as a multi-carrier shipping system. And then, of course, there's going to be a couple people going, well, I don't even know what that means. So let me tell you a little bit more about what that's going to be. All right, let me move forward to my slides here. There's really 5 components to a multi-carrier shipping system. We're very proud about some of the key components. First is our connectivity to things such as ERP, NetSuite, perfect example. Almost a little north of 50% of our 440 customers use NetSuite to run their life, and we're strong supporters of that. But we connect to other things like RF Smart, a great warehouse management system. If you guys do anything with EDI vendors, of course, any e-commerce, all of that. We have a great connectivity, built-in integrations, or an open RESTful API And for those that aren't that technical, that means we can really connect to anything pretty quickly. Our carrier network is outstanding. Think of us on the parcel side, those small package things. We also do LTL, or less than truckload, and we have 3PLs. So we actually manage, though, our own connections, and that's super important. We don't outsource that to anybody else. We have 67 carriers in our network, but you really have a lot more because 13 of those are 3PLs. So you hear some people say, I've got 300 carriers. Well, we have 67 carriers and all the connections that those 3PLs have. So if you do something with a XPO Logistics or a Global Trans or Blue Grace, you get all of theirs as well. And then we do some stuff with Amazon, which is, it's what a lot of people are doing today. So if you're Seller Fulfilled Prime, we do that. We help people pack. I think you saw a little bit of that in the video. So there's your standard packing. A lot of people want to improve process, so they scan pack. Some people need to build pallets out over a period of time. So we have what we call a multi-level packing tool. We help with that. And then, of course, we get into what most people know about us is the shipping, right? We execute the shipment. We tell the carriers, come and pick this thing up and take it to where it needs to go. We produce all the relevant documents, not just the labels, but the bills of lading, the certificates of origin. It used to be the NAFTA, now it's the United States. Is it Canada-Mexico agreement or Mexico-Canada? It's one or the other, but that was in effect July 1st, and our labels were ready for that there. So we produce all of that stuff. And again, I want to kind of jump back to the connectivity. We write all of that back in the NetSuite. So any of that information you have about the cost of shipping, your tracking, and everything, we go back to that single version of the truth, NetSuite. We push it back into there. And then you can imagine with all that data, we've got a lot of great things we can do in reporting. We can take a look at your carriers, see how they're performing. We can do audits of the freight work you're doing. We have things like also some what we call ancillary services. A lot of times people would like to do insurance better than what the carrier does. Well, we've got a great relationship with a broker here, and we can manage your insurance for you as well. So that should give you the overview of what we do and how we help people get their stuff to their customers as cheaply as possible, as quickly as possible, and as efficiently as possible. If I am correct, I should have probably told you some of those metrics during my little spiel there. One of the things I do want to highlight, because I know we have a lot of NetSuite people on here, we're 10 years we've been built for NetSuite validated. We've been designated as a mission critical app within the NetSuite environment. We have a suite success verification. If you use NetSuite and you need to ship something, nobody has done it more frequently and better than PaceJet. 95% of our customers have stayed with us. We've shipped over 3 billion with a B shipments through PaceJet. We reduce your labor, make things faster, and reduce the cost with shipping. So there's my story of why you ought to do PaceJet. But let's get to, I think, maybe the real reason we want to be here. Brian, I'm going to turn it over to you. If you just want to let me know when you want me to move forward in your slides, I'll take it from there, sir. So you're on.
Thanks, Alan. So yeah, I'm Brian from Chicago Music Exchange. I'm the shipping manager and have been with the company for just going over 7 years now. Chicago Music Exchange has been around for a little bit, about 30 years now, as you can see on the slide. We started as a straight up brick and mortar store that specialized in really boutique, high-end instruments, super rare, super vintage, which is cool and great and all, but that's not going to grow your customer base that much. So after it changed ownership, the owner moved from did a hybrid model that was brick and mortar and e-commerce, and we were shipping out of the back door at the shop, which works just fine. But then we wanted to scale it, so we kept growing and growing and growing, and eventually we opened up our warehouse about 5 years ago. And when we had that system, with our old previous system, we had a whole bunch of things we just kind of had to figure out, because we basically built how we ship and our e-commerce side of the business. We just, through trial and error, strikes and gutters. You know, it was a lot of hard lessons and growing pains. But then we switched over to NetSuite and PaceJet and RF Smart, and things changed dramatically. Yeah, Alan, you can go ahead and switch.
All right, and as I'm switching, I do have to tell you, I got to ask you a question though.
Yes.
I'd come up to the warehouse and saw it, and it's one of the cooler warehouses I've seen. But I want to ask you this because it's a rumor running around PaceJet. So you have to answer. Are all your warehouse workers, are they all members of a band or different bands?
Yes. It's one of the unspoken requirements of CME. Either you have to be super into music, or you do have to be in a band or multiple bands. We did have one guy. He was in the warehouse for a little bit, but he ended up being a drummer for Blue Man Group, which was pretty cool.
No. Yeah. All right. I didn't mean to take you off. All right, we'll get back to the business challenges. We'll let you run with this.
So our old inventory management system, we used a system called Lightspeed. Now Lightspeed is totally fine for smaller scale businesses. It's not very it's not built for larger companies. So it was going to be fine for when we started out, but then when we switched to the warehouse and we had 2 locations to work out of, Lightspeed was just not going to work with it. For instance, we didn't have all of the way we stored everything in the warehouse was all done through memory. We just had to basically store it the best way we knew how, and there was no rhyme or real reason other than this just seems like a good idea. And it turned into new employees or even older employees having to literally memorize where everything was. This created longer pick times, slower times for packing, and it just increased the overall error. It was just extremely manual, and then you can see we would have easily 80 misships a year, which is basically just user error. You ordered a blue one and we sent you a red one, and that's just because everything was done just on the human side. We didn't have any technology about that, and it depended on the employee, of course, but it took a long time for employees to memorize where things were, and they would start out in one little corner and then work their way out and then out and then out. But then there was a cap. There was only so much that the employee was going to memorize of where stuff was. So that just resulted in even more misships, even more bottlenecks, even things going wrong. So we switched over, and now things are changing big time. One of the things that we prided ourselves on was speed, because we do ship with Amazon. We are a prime seller, and as most people know who have bought things on Amazon, or know people who have, their whole thing is speed. So we wanted to compete with that, which is why we switched over to NetSuite with the RF Smart warehousing system, and then being able to automate it with PaceJet just made us all go that much faster.
All right, do you want me to move on to the next slide, sir?
Yes, please. Sorry, I forgot I need to say that.
I'm paying attention, though, I promise. All right, here we go.
So yeah, as you can see, we had an 82.5% reduction in misships. That is all coming down to it's getting rather difficult to mess up an order at this point. An order meaning sending the wrong item. The way that we're still getting them from time to time, but that's usually brought on by a receiving error, which is even going further up the chain with a vendor error. They said they sent us a blue one, even though it was a red one. We received it as a blue one because that's what's on the packing slip, and then so on and then so on and so on. But as you can see, that with the integration of RF Smart and PaceJet, that went down dramatically. The other thing that we were able to see and do was the 68K in annual savings. Where that basically came from is PaceJet uses container profiles, which is a fancy word for box. What you can do is basically build your container profile, so you can say that you want this item to go in this box. And you can have that all automated, or you can set up your items to say, I want all of these items to go in this one box. And what that basically does is save you time of trying to figure out how to ship this drum set into this box, or how to ship this guitar into this box. It can all be built and automated that way. And in doing so, you're saving time in supply, you're saving time well, you're actually just saving money in dimensional weight, because right now, the carriers, the big boys, FedEx and UPS, they're not charging by the size of the box, they're charging by dimensional weight. So the better you can get with those types of parameters, the more savings you'll just get. It's super easy. It takes a little time, but once it's built, it's off and running. And then
I think what.
Go ahead.
Let me ask you real quick. I interrupt you because I know I see a couple questions in here, and there's one that I wanted to ask you based on the last time I was up in your warehouse.
Sure.
I see the 30,000 SKUs. So a lot of times, patient and are smart. We talk to people and they go, I don't have my SKUs really identified. They're not in NetSuite, and specifically with the weights and dims on that. So I'm going to ask you, and then ask you about the work effort. Are your 30,000 SKUs, you have weights and dims, and are they in NetSuite?
Yes. So yes. Once we figured out how the auto print, how the automation basically works, we set up a schedule, and we had an employee, whether it be the first half of the day or the second half of the day, or just 2 hours or 1 hour or whatever, we set up a schedule that every day somebody was going through and weighing and measuring everything. And while that can be incredibly tedious if you're shipping individual screws and nuts and these tiny little things, it can and will save you time on the back end. And if you know how you're going to be shipping it, once you weigh it, it's done, unless the manufacturer, the distributor, changes their packaging. And then you can build queues, and you can build ways to automate in the receiving process. So you receive a new item that doesn't have weights and dims, it can pop into a queue or a schedule that you can just maintain on a daily basis. We run into probably 50 to 100 SKUs every couple of weeks. And then, once it reaches a certain number, we'll just go, hey guys, let's take an hour and let's all bang out these handful of items that need weights and dims. And it'll save you so much more time in trying to figure out, what does this item weigh? What does this item fit into? And it can be done. That 30,000 SKUs took us about 3 to 5 months, I want to say. But it saved us so much more time.
And there's a money component to that too, right? Because you're making sure that you're packing as efficiently as possible.
There's a monetary value to it, in the sense that you're not going to be guessing. You grab an item and you're like, this might weigh a pound, but you don't really know that. So and add it, and then let's say you grab 5 of those things and then you put it into a box. Now you've basically spent more money than you probably thought. And it'll give you more accurate reporting on the back end too. So you'll be able to see. That's where that 68K really showed up, is the fact that I was able to get more accurate reporting back from PaceJet and realize that the weights and dims do make a difference.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I didn't want to interrupt. You were getting down to the, there's actually some questions about your operational team, and I think you were getting down to the 12 warehouse team members, and I think some people wanted to know, there's 12. Kind of what's the breakout of what they do and how they do it and who interacts.
So I run it kind of like an offense defense kind of thing. There's the inbound team, which is just 3 people, and they're the ones taking the items off the trucks, organizing them by size, by brand, or by vendor, and then they're the ones that are receiving them with using RF Smart and putting the inventory into NetSuite, and then we use a dummy bin to load everything into NetSuite, with RF. And then the outbound team which is 6 to 8 people on any given day. They're the ones that basically put it away, and then when it sells are the ones that are picking it and processing it.
Are you shipping 8 hours a day, and then how many days a week, or what's your shipping? I mean, how often are you shipping?
On a 10-hour day. I have my inbound team coming in a little bit early so they can follow up with vendors and whether it be, returns or claims, damage claims. It's a little quieter in the morning. And then my outbound team shows up at 9 a.m. and then inbound shuts down at 5 and outbound shuts down at 6. And we are processing.
Okay. So there's a question here on what's your mix of like a small parcel or LTL? Do you do any LTL, and if so, how much?
We have only done, I would say we probably do maybe 12 pallets a year. We're still very much on a parcel level. The demand for palletized product is not there yet because most of our customers are B2C. We're not going to businesses.
Okay, we got a couple questions that have been submitted in here. I know we want to get going, but let me ask these real quick. We got one great from Kevin that says, for a company like Chicago Music Exchange that ships large and valuable items, and you ship a lot of small ones, but it's large and valuable items, are there special functionalities that can be performed within PaceJet to ensure security through every step of the supply chain? Yeah, because some of your guitars are pretty expensive things, man.
Yeah. I mean, we've shipped instruments up into the $60,000 range, which are always quite nervous. One of the things that we did, and we automated with PaceJet, it was a customization feature, but it works really well and saved us a lot of time. Was if an item is a certain value, in this case we said $500. If it was $500 or more, when it imported into PaceJet, it was automatically requiring signature required. Before you made the label, before you even rate shopped it, before you did anything. And that was the one step that we're really doing. When it gets to an even higher value, let's just say 10K and up, which is not it's not that common. Most of our guitars are in the $3,000 to $5,000 range. When it gets to that point, then I will flag it personally with my UPS rep, and we'll watch it every step of the way.
Okay. I got some more questions, but I don't want to interrupt your flow too much more. What else do you want to talk about on this slide while we're here, man?
I'm actually good. This is all good. I'm down to answer more questions. Whatever's next.
All right. So I'm going to see if we have a next slide. If not, we do have some questions. Let me see what I got here. Oh, hey, it's question and answer time, Brian. Very well done. So I'll go over here to the thank you and all the contact. But let me get to some of these questions. Okay. There's a couple things around the customization and the setup. So I'm going to bundle some of these together for you. All right. Because we have several. So generally they're wanting to know how much customization did you have to do to set this up? And in a related, how much did you do? How much did you have to hire someone else to do? And when do you make that decision?
We had to set up a handful of customizations in the very, very beginning. And that was mainly, and I think mainly that was because, every warehouse, every company is going to be speaking different languages. What you call, I need to make this go NDA, or it's going to be RTS and make sure it goes into 664. Like, what does that mean? And is that a global type of language? It's not. So I think the customizations that we did in the first steps of implementation were probably due to the fact that we just didn't really know what PaceJet was saying and what we were saying and how we can kind of work together on that. We didn't outsource that much of it because we were able to work with our PaceJet rep and the help center enough to get done what we needed to get done. But there wasn't too many rules that we had to set up that I can really think of off the top of my head that were very painstaking. It was more or less just like, can we do this? Well, probably. Have you tried X, Y, and Z? No, I haven't. No, let's try them. Okay, cool. This didn't work, but this did. And then you go down to the very nitty gritty thing of the problem, and then you can get it customized. Because the main thing with NetSuite and RF Smart and PageJet is, you want to automate your system, right? You want to make things go as fast as possible. But in order to do that, you need to clearly communicate and understand your overall process, because once it's automated, it's super hard to undo it or find the little spot that didn't work right. So that would be my first step and first suggestion when you're looking at customizations.
I'm going to kind of take off on the customization a little bit here. It's a little bit about troubleshooting, and I know I'm on the phone right now, so hopefully you'll say nice things about it. But the question, let's generalize it and say your whole system. So your NetSuite, your PageJet. How is troubleshooting handling? And I guess the question really is it any good or not? So if you run into problems on any of those three applications, how do you manage that?
We run around in terror. No, most of the time if there is a problem, it's most of the time, and I would say 3/4 of it is user error. So let's try and replicate the problem with a different person doing it. And if you can't replicate the problem, then that means there's either a training issue or a user functionality issue within that specific person. If there truly is something broken and it doesn't work right, whether in the holy trinity of NetSuite, RF Smart, and PageJet, then you need to identify which system is not working correctly. Most of the time with NetSuite, they usually give an update if they're doing, or they give you a heads up if they're doing an update or some kind of patch. With RF Smart, same kind of issue. But for the most part, their side of things is pretty straightforward. And then with PageJet, it's the same kind of thing. And I've noticed with the handful of updates they've had to do, it's usually during off hours. Now that doesn't work for a company that's working 24 hours a day, but for most shippers, that you're working in an 8 to 12 hour day, it's not really going to matter if it's happening at 4 a.m. And in the event that it's still broken and you don't know what you need to be doing, as long as you have a strong relationship with your NetSuite rep or your PageJet rep, then most of the time it can get solved pretty quickly.
Okay. Let's talk about employee training and employee usage. How much employee training, or what was the employee training like before and versus now? Okay. So before you put your system into place, you bring people in. What are the 6 to 8 guys on the outbound, the inbound? What was training like then, and what is training like now that you've got an automated system put in?
Well, so our old system, we would do a tour. We'd walk around and basically point. This is where our guitar straps are. This is where our guitar picks are. This is where our strings are. And we would have everything labeled with either magnets or Sharpies, or we would have hang tags just to basically make it as foolproof as we could in the old system. And employees would we would give them orders and go, here's all the guitar straps, and we know they're in this area. Good luck. And
and I've been in your warehouse, so you have every inch of space in there utilized.
Yeah. And it's been like that since day one. So it took a while, it just did. And the bigger thing that we ran into was, let's say it's July 5th and we were closed for the 4th, but we still had orders coming in overnight. So we're walking into 2 times the work or even 3 times the work. And we have a fresh employee who's been there maybe a week or 2. Now they're under this enormous amount of pressure to go faster because they have to get the orders out. These customers paid money; they want their stuff. So now the user error goes up, the the retention goes, gets sloppy, and then mistakes just start happening. Now that we've been able to switch over to a technology-based inventory management system, it's pretty straightforward. And in the modern, I in the modern employee, most of the workforce is now shifting into the millennials. They're good at using technology. They know how to use smartphones. They know how to use computers and systems a lot faster than even myself. And that creates a faster onboarding process, big time.
So on the usability, I mean, I've seen all these tools. We use NetSuite at PaceJet as our tool, and we certainly have a lot of customers who are smart. But the question here is kind of on usability. How's the usability with the employee? So it kind of relates back to the training thing, but getting them up to speed on the tools, I guess, is the question. I'm paraphrasing here. How long does it take to get up to speed on using the tools?
So most of my employees are, on the younger side, and it takes them 3-4 days. I had an employee who was working in another department, but he was shadowing mine last week, and we had him up and picking and putting away items using an RF Smart handheld device. He had that figured out in about an hour. It's the functionality is right there. Once you understand what the terms mean and what the language is, and and if you can clearly communicate what you're trying to accomplish, all you need to do is match it up with the function of what NetSuite and RF can do.
All right, let me switch a little bit more to the analysis. What type of reports are you using? What type of reports do you use to drive the accurate reporting, I guess, is the question right here. But what type of reporting are you using out of, let's say, PaceJet to help you improve your processes?
Shipping cost, or freight cost. That's basically the cost of the label. That's the big one that I'm looking at. The big things that you can control if you're running a warehouse or you're running e-commerce, the two big things that you can control or have the most volatility are your supply and your postage, and your cardboard and your label. So if you're able to even onboard the cost of your supply, combine that with the cost of your postage, you can say that shipment 1, 2, 3 costed you X to get to California. It costed you X to get to Florida. It cost you X to get to New York. Those kind of things. And that's what I have set up reporting to kick back to me, is I basically want to know what does it cost to put it in a box, and what does it cost to get it to the customer, and then where can I shave? Where can I squeeze the sponge a little bit more?
Got it. All right, so let's go a little bit more to the supply chain. There's two questions, and maybe you can answer them in one answer. One of them is pretty general. It says, what does your entire supply chain look like? But then the other one, it says, how much of your business is e-commerce now? And I'm going to actually add a piece, and how much of it has become e-commerce since we've entered into this crazy year, 2020. So talk about your supply chain, and then maybe a little focus, a commentary on e-commerce then and now.
So our supply chain, is that coming? Are you talking about our merchandise, our products?
Yeah. So, well, okay. So it's a general question that was put forward. So maybe I'm not asking it correctly, but what does your entire supply chain? So think about, where do you source it, bring it in, and then get it out? I mean, that would be the high level version of what I would say the supply chain. Where are you bringing your stuff in from? And then how are you getting it? I mean, how are you getting the orders for it as well? So sourcing it, order taking, and then we obviously know how you're distributing it. So when it comes to our product, our supply chain is pretty much coming from all over the world. We're not getting a ton of international stuff, but the majority of it is coming from, China to California, and then distributing straight to us, either from the manufacturer directs or the distributor. With music instrument, the music instrument industry, there's a lot of mom and pops. There's a lot of 2 people in a garage tinkering around with the guitar effects pedals.
all the way to the giants, like Fender and Gibson, that have supply chains all over the place, and we get them direct from either, like for Gibson, for example, they have multiple locations, and we're either getting them from their, acoustic factory in Montana all the way to their electrics that are in Memphis, Tennessee. Taylor and Fender are kind of the same way. When it comes to our supply, as far as our materials to ship, we're getting those directly from one place, out in the suburbs.
No suburbs. How much? Let's go to the e-commerce side. How much of your orders now driven online, and has that changed in the last? Let's just go, this year comparatively.
We were rocking probably a 60-40 split prior to COVID when it came to our overall revenue. We had a lot of foot traffic because the store is gorgeous.
It's very cool, man.
And it attracted a lot of business. It's a very welcoming environment. But we were also using Amazon, and we were selling on reverb.com, and we were using our own website. That has probably changed to without running real reporting, just seeing the volume shift, it's probably now an 80-20 split, now that we're in this era of COVID, and we're relying very much on our e-commerce side of things. The cheapest transaction in retail is a customer walks in, they buy what they need, and they walk right back out. That all sounds great, but unfortunately, that's not easy to do with drum sets and guitars, and when they live across the state or across the country. So the next step in the e-commerce world is how to do that as fast as possible and as cheap as possible. That's it.
I'm going to throw you a softball as we kind of wind this down on our time frame, but it's really intended to take advantage of your expertise in doing this.
Okay.
Let's say we've got someone new, similar to you, right? They're running a retail component like that, and they're looking to automate. They were in a similar challenge you had before, and they like the NetSuite RF Smart Taste Check. If you're to give them 3 pieces of advice before they start, what are those 3 things you would suggest that they do to make sure that turning it on and they can get that ROI as soon as possible?
So first step would be make sure you have an absolute accurate inventory evaluation. There's no point in just uploading, I got 7 of them, and you didn't, because now you're sending in bad information. So you want to make sure that the information that you switch over to NetSuite is 100% accurate. That would be step 1. Step 2 is figure out how high do you want to fly? How much do you need to ship? How much do you need to process? How much do you need to do to cover your costs, to be profitable, and at what level? And then once that's established, you have accurate inventory, you know the volume you need to do, then make sure that you have accurate and good relationships with your carriers. And you have a decent supply chain as far as how to get shipping materials, and then constantly work those 2 factors to keep cutting your costs while improving your volume.
Perfect. Those are really well stated, easily documented, sound piece of advice. I'm going to ask one last question of you before we turn it back over to Caitlin or whoever's going to be our host and tell us what's coming next in the summit. But I cannot remember. You sent Stephen and I to a restaurant that's at the beginning of Route 66, and it has a skeleton on a motorcycle. Do you remember this?
Absolutely.
What's the name of that restaurant?
It's called Twisted Spoke, and it's
Twisted Spoke.
It's the beginning of Route 66, depending on which direction you're going. So it's a pretty cool restaurant.
Yeah, so if you're in Chicago, guys, and you have an opportunity to go see Brian, store's great. It's not next to the warehouse, but the warehouse, if you're in our business, it's very cool to see. But make sure you stop by the Twisted Spoke. I can vouch for the meatloaf sandwich. It's very, very cool on that. Brian, any last comments to our audience out here before we ship on out?
No, I mean, overall, you know, this is, you know, if you're switching around, if you're moving things, you know, from one system to another, it's only going to be as stressful as you make it. And we did a lot of trial by fire type stuff, and I'm happy to be a resource to anybody who has questions. So by all means, shoot me an email. It's brianr@chicagomusicexchange.com. It's the way you can automate things. You can make your life super, super easy, and it's a very satisfying feeling to know that you can pretty much press a stopwatch and see how fast you can go. And then, you know, just like in racing or video games or whatever, how do you get better at it? And that's what's fun to me.
Great advice. Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it. It's good talking to you again, as always. We'll make sure we get you the PaceJet hat for your team out there. Yeah. And I think I turn it over, right? Caitlin, do we turn it back to you guys, or who's the host to tell us what's coming next?
Yes, actually, Alan, I was going to say there's a few more questions that have come in. I know we won't get to get to all, but I do want to make sure we address a couple, at least one more here.
Sure.
Let me see here. I got one. This one's kind of general, and Alan, I think you could probably hit on it based off of the first start of our presentation was about PaceJet, but someone actually was asking, are we a 3PL, or are we a different type of service? I think that's something we can maybe hit on just to kind of explain the difference of that.
So asking, is PaceJet a 3PL, or are we a different kind of service? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if you want to kind of go into detail about a little more about kind of what we do, that'd be great.
Sure. We're a software that actually connects your NetSuite, you know, your ERP, but of course we love NetSuite, that connects NetSuite to a 3PL. So no, we're not a 3PL. We're that connecting component. We're called a multi-carrier shipping system. So what we really do is when you have a sales order in NetSuite, we take the data off that sales order, you know, what are you going to ship and what box and stuff like that. And then we help rate that out through a 3PL or your carrier direct of FedEx or a YRC. And what we do is we say, hey, we send a data feed off to the 3PL and says, this box, this package, this pallet needs to go to this place, and we'd like it to be today. Could you tell me what the price is? We bring that back. The customer says that's good or bad, or maybe shops with others, selects the carrier. And then what we do is we tell the carrier, that 3PL, come pick it up at Brian's warehouse, right? We take all the relevant data with that, which is how much is this going to cost, and write that back into NetSuite. And then, of course, we print all of it. So we're the software that sits in between you and connects you to your carrier. I explained to my father-in-law, the best way I could say is if you've ever used Expedia or Travelocity to book travel, that's a little bit like what PaceJet does, right? We take the information from NetSuite, and then we shop your carriers, like shopping Delta, United, American, or looking for Hilton and hotels like that. We shop the carriers that you want us to, and then we execute the shipping process. Hopefully that answers.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Alan, for doing that. I just want to again thank everyone for joining us today and remind you that we will be giving away a prize here at the end of the week for attending this session, a $150 gift card from Chicago Music Exchange. Brian, Alan, thanks for joining us and presenting today and sharing the Chicago Music Exchange story. And we will
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll have someone reach out to the unanswered questions during this session. Thank you.